Hello and welcome to Faith and Honest Conversation. I'm Tom Rowland and this is James Farrant. Hi, James, and it's good to be here again, James, and us to try and share our experiences of faith, of spirituality, as honestly as we can, and hopefully make it okay for you to have your experience. So, James, we were just talking, and as we usually do, think, oh, we maybe should start recording some of this, and this seems meaty stuff. So, yeah, and I was really sharing about what was going on with me, and so maybe I'll start with that, unless you want to go anywhere.
You were mentioning about looking at meaning and the sort of and how that develops and grows. Is that right? As your faith maybe develops and grows or changes?
Yeah, and I think it's something I'm at the edge of, or it's I'm pushing. I'm maybe it's. I mean, we call it a kind of growing edge in kind of therapy circles, don't we? It's like it's something I'm still maybe growing into. Maybe I think it's come, and I guess it's maybe one of these things that just the repercussions of where you find yourself in your journey of faith, or some of the repercussions just start to be experienced a bit later on, maybe, or you start being open to different questions. Maybe it's something like that. So I think what I was saying, or I think how I'm understanding it is, I used to be quite definite about what was meaningful, like what the meaning of my life was, and other people's, maybe because of the religious framework that I had. That was it. It was reasonably clear, or at least the parameters were quite clear. It was something to do with evangelism or worship or holiness, something in that, like, the specifics could be worked out, but it's the parameters are quite clear about what is meaningful and maybe what is
so almost so like what is like almost a spiritual path, essentially, or what was meaningful spiritually or meaningful generally.
I mean, I think for me it was generally like what was and I guess what I'm getting to is like, what is the meaning of my life, or what is meaningful in my life, and I think so generally in those terms it would be the more meaningful stuff is that those sort of spiritual things, and maybe changing society for the better would be in it, but that may have been a lesser thing to the more spiritual goals, I guess, or becoming a something in ministry, in some sort of church ministry, I guess, so I guess as I've become less certain about those things, or just refuse some of those things, or come to a place of struggling a lot with certain parts of the organization of that, maybe, and some of the underlying impetus or motivations, and I guess so, but also becoming less certain about what is true, or what is so I think I hold religious beliefs much more lightly, or much more lightly, in the sense that, we've spoken, in the sense of Yeah, stuck words here, but in the sense of not wanting to say they're wholly true, or they give the whole truth. Yeah, maybe I'm just lingering on a interpretive point here, but yeah, I'm holding those truths more lightly, and are happy with not knowing, or happy with being more uncertain. And I guess where I'm kind of maybe wrestling with more and more now is then, well, what is the meaning of my life, I guess.
Right. Okay.
And the other day, especially, I realized that there was an underlying threat felt about one day dying, and that fear wasn't about how I died, or about like the pain that could be involved, or or what my quality of life would be, and it wasn't so much about other people, like the impact I might leave on other people or anything like that. It was not existing anymore, or the possibility of annihilation. Yeah, no longer being. And what came with that was well, what on earth is meaningful then? My lifespan is, I don't know, another hour to 50 years. Like how, what could I possibly do that would have some sort of meaning?
Yeah.
And I guess before, when I believed more, or held on to a belief of life after death, and held on to beliefs about what we ought to be doing in our lives, like those sort of questions weren't there. But I think that's coming to the fore, and it's kind of manifesting in frustration at my current circumstances, or what I'm spending a lot of my time doing, and wishing or thinking I should be further along in certain areas of my life, but then as I was reflecting, I was thinking, well, so what if I was further along in some areas of my life? Like, can that resolve this potential meaninglessness or emptiness? I'm going to pause there, because I don't want to. I could go on, but also I think it's very easy to quickly go on from these sorts of things.
Yeah, to move past it without like sort of looking at it. It's really fascinating hearing you talk about that, Tom, because I think that that's something that I've kind of experienced to an extent myself. This idea of, when I was sort of like deeply entrenched in church and doctrine and theology and all of this sort of stuff, there was this real sense of, oh, well, I'm kind of, all of these really massive questions, they've got a really clear, quite pithy answer, or it's like, well, your life's eternal, the things you do now ripple into eternity, etc., etc. So all of that kind of solidity of being and action and activity now would be important later. So everything had like real importance, even like the minutiae of your day. And I think I still have that, but I don't know if I still got like this sense of eternal existence, which again, as you're saying, that's something that you're not 100% on any longer, or maybe sort of toying with. there's a sense of, I don't know, and I don't think that anybody truly knows.
Yeah,
who's still alive. Guess the people who aren't maybe do. And obviously, like different interpretations of the Bible would argue one way or the other on that, or maybe not. You know, so it does get a bit confusing. And then that does, as soon as you don't have that, like, well, we're eternal beings, so we have to do X, Y, and Z, or that means that everybody is as valuable in this sense and this sense, and that these things aren't so important. So you can kind of like, I'm trying to think of an example. So certain like material and worldly goals or worldly activities or things that would be considered less spiritual, I suppose you end up with like a hierarchy if that's the case. If everything's eternal. Is that possible? I don't know. Like, I'm sort of making this up as I go along, but it kind of seems to be about right. And then, but if then that's called into question, it then makes you question, okay, well, maybe that this hierarchy isn't so rigid, and maybe there are some things there that, oh, actually that is really important, even though before I didn't have that as like a high priority. Is that sort of?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, just a moment.
Yeah.
The light was really annoying me. Sorry. Yeah, I think where what I'm feeling is that the whole hierarchy has collapsed.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just trying to reorder it. It's that what's the meaning in any of it?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, what's coming to mind is how you've talked about deconstruction, and the kind of building collapsing, and it's then like, what do you build instead? Do you build can you build anything instead?
And these pieces still fit together.
Yeah. And maybe what's the ground that you build it upon?
Yes.
Well,
yeah. That for me with the deconstruction process has been like the hardest thing to work out, and I still haven't got there. Is what am I building on? Not just what am I building with, but where am I building it, and how do I construct anything? There is a sense of, it feels a little bit like you're, I suppose, shell-shocked after a huge catastrophe, and you just think, well, what's the point of constructing anything? It'll just fall down again.
Yeah, I mean, there is that, isn't it? Like, I've done this before.
Yes.
I've bought into things before, maybe.
And then you feel jaded and feel a bit like, well, if that's these things that were so crystalline and so true and so like solid, so rock-like, are now no longer in existence, or dust to me. Now what? You know, what do I trust? Where do you land? And I think that's maybe where you remember last time we spoke a bit about like internal and external God, and I got all a bit muddled, and I think I couldn't work out how to express it. Maybe I think that's maybe where I've landed, is the only thing I've really got left is internal God. Yeah, and that doesn't really give me meaning or purpose necessarily, except that my belief that if other people have internal God as well, whether they do or not, like it's good to be good to people. Like kindness is still like an essential. I think that that it boils down to love is still the answer. But what that looks like in everyday life, I'm not so sure any longer, and I'm definitely not so good at it as I used to be when I was in a church setting, which seems weird, but it's definitely true.
Not so good at loving.
Yeah. I feel truncated in that aspect. So I don't know. I've kind of gone off at a bit of a tangent from what you were saying.
No, I think what's coming to me is two things. One is I think one is this kind of not knowing, and I think for me, and maybe for you as well in your story from what we've said, but I think for me, I want to hold on to that place of not knowing, like not having a definite answer, like, or any answer I now give, I think there's always going to be, but it could not be.
Yeah. There's a lightness to it, like a tentativeness.
Yeah. And I think that's maybe where I'm coming to with faith is kind of like, my experience of God at the moment is of a personal God. That's how I interpret my experiences, but it could not be. And similar sort of things. Like I have a powerful experience connected to the Christian story, but the Christian story could not be about life after death or about something, or it could be, and so it's kind of learning a different way of finding meaning that isn't in certainty, that is or that's able to also be, but this could not be meaningful at the end of the day. This could all be forgotten, or who cares if it's remembered or not anyway. Like maybe those things aren't meaningful. So I think that, and that seems important at the moment for me to hold on to. Because it stops dangers maybe, or trying to enforce meaning on other people, or and I also think it gives a bit of freedom that I can leave that sort of meaning or that sort of story, and that's okay, and like it's not constricting or nailing me down to something. I'm speaking in very abstract terms.
No, not at all. But also, like, it doesn't mean that you're having to convince anybody of your position as being the right or the only way. It means that you've got this sudden scope that, oh, hang on, there are these other perspectives and these other I can't say that word, trajectories. That's a really difficult one for me. Weird. That, like, all of those different things that have got are valid and have validity in so far as yours does as well. So, like, if you believe one thing, and that has truth for you, or there is truth, or there's been like something meaningful and essential in it, as you found with the Christian story, that people have found something, an element of that from other direction. I think I'm drifting off the point again.
That I don't then have to impose my meaning onto other people.
Yes. Yeah. That's it. Well, well rescued.
and other people then aren't a threat to me either. They're not going to come along and ruin my meaning or my validity or something. That The other thing that came to me when you were talking was so I guess the link there with what you were saying was this story of God being in us, or the internal God. I like as well.
Yeah.
And I guess I guess I'm conscious that that's still a spiritual or religious story that you know, maybe there isn't a God and he's not inside us. You know, maybe that's the case too, sort of thing. But at the moment, that's what I find meaningful in my experience. And I think that's where I got to is just like my trying maybe the most fruitful or the most fertile or solidest, without being certain, ground of building meaning or discovering meaning. It is in my own experience.
Yes.
It's what I find meaningful.
Yeah.
And that I think that can be misinterpreted. I think it can be misinterpreted as we choose whatever the heck we want to be meaningful. But it's not that, because it's like the meaning is already there for me to discover inside my being.
Right. Okay. It's part of your DNA, almost part of your makeup, part of who you are.
Yes. It's and maybe part of humanity, but maybe also unique to me as well. And my history. But it's like it's not my choice. It's my choice what I do with it. Right. It's my choice how I integrate it with my life and how I try to plan to put it into my life or work towards something or whatever. They're all conscious choices. But it's something I discover or I become aware of.
Okay. Yeah. I like that. There's like an element of, you know, is it in Isaiah where it says that I know the plans that I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to destroy you. Like the bit that always kind of sticks with me is that I know the plans I have for you. That's like well, they've already kind of, they're plans, aren't they? They're things that we can that are there, like almost pre-built blueprints that exist within us or exist for us and around us. And there's also the plurality of it. So if one doesn't quite, if we don't find this plan, there are other plans. We're not limited. We're very much you can grow into those things. And I think that, I really like what you're saying there, Tom, that kind of sense of it. It's not something, we just pick whatever we like. It's not that. It's that there are, based on who we are and how we're made and who we're becoming and who we become, there's like a natural way for us to I don't know now. I guess express our divinity. That's a really washy way of saying what I was trying to get at. But it was a placeholder for now. But
no, it's where you landed.
Yeah,
and it's like
it's like that's not. That's like, oh, this isn't quite the point I was aiming for. There we go. Yeah,
but I guess I guess as you were talking, I was thinking, and I was talking about this with someone else earlier, that in this experience of in our stories, maybe, or our experience of spirituality, a sense of some I don't know how to put it, but well, an unfolding of a bigger thing towards something better, or towards the so like a bigger, maybe the universe as a whole, flow unfolding towards something more whole.
Yeah.
And how we can kind of get a sense of what might be unfolding.
Okay. Yeah.
And that being a sort of spiritual experience or something. But this so that's where when I was when my brain kind of went to when you talk about the plans I have for you.
Yeah.
Kind of because I've had this conversation so recently, like it's you know, in the Christian story, it's God's plans or God's redemptive plan that is unfolding. And there being a sort of unique plan for each of us as well in our participation of that story, without, like you saying, it being, oh, I've messed up that plan, I can't be part of it. Like it's always opening up into us.
There's always new creation and new things being created.
And I think I mean, for me that was quite helpful in terms of going back to experience and being present to all that's going on in me and maybe around me, and around me and in the person, which kind of goes back to what we were talking, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, about immediacy and what goes on in the moment. And like that's where we become open to what's unfolding, or
I see.
And it's like that meaning, which can be both my own and part of this greater story, kind of at the same time. That it kind of, you discover it in what is meaningful for you in that moment, or what you discovered to be meaningful. And I guess I mean, one way of putting that is that if we associate the divine with this force, then it is kind of our expressions of the divine, or if does that make sense, or has that been a leap?
No, I think so. So because because we've got like it's how we're experiencing the unfolding that's going on around us and through us and in the universe, that like the meaning comes from experiencing that.
The meaning makes itself known.
Right. Okay. It's like revelation, like it being revealed to us as it goes.
Yeah, but it's not like revelation from the outside in.
No,
it's experienced
revelation, and kind of happens partly because we're there. Like because we're observing and participating in it. And it's oh, I like that.
And because we're there, it's in our uniqueness that that particular meaning reveals itself. Or
I really like that. I really like there was a talk I went to recently that and one of the points, and it was like a really minor thing, was that it said that you know, we often think of ourselves as think of nature as something apart from ourselves, rather than we are nature, and that nature is us, and that we're part of nature, not just an entity within nature. And so when we talk about nature, actually, we're talking about us as well, as humanity, and it's quite easy for us to divorce ourselves or separate ourselves from that. And I think that what you're saying there is it's a real coming together and a real like us being a, you know, like in communion and in time with and in sync with the universe, with nature and with God and with each other and with ourselves. And that like alignment brings like, that's where we go, it's like loads and loads of lenses all suddenly coming into focus, and you can see, oh right, yeah, there's the meaning right there. And then like, but we're so often not quite in focus because of one thing or another, or we're looking elsewhere or whatever. So maybe it's those lenses aligning. Oh yeah, that's interesting.
I think that idea of focus is really key, that often my focus is on what I think I should be like, or where I think I should be. So it's kind of it's full of distrust of me and my experience, and it's also avoiding looking at me because it's looking
elsewhere, or looking at a future you, or a possible future you, something that essentially doesn't exist. And I think that that's right, isn't it? Because again, we talked about that kind of looking to the future, looking to the past, and none of that really being super relevant except for the now, except for what's being created, except for what's being created, which is the meaning which is being created, or purpose that's being created.
And our capacity to then create something completely new. Like, it's not something that's like, if we take our meaning from outside of ourselves, it's always going to be old stuff we're recreating. But when it's coming from this awareness and presence to what is going on in us, and maybe in nature, and maybe spiritually, and maybe in our connection with everything, you know, there's a whole, our own experience kind of comes outwards as well in some way. But when we're really in touch with that, then something that is very counter what we're told we should be, or counter what we're told society should be going towards, or just quite radical maybe, or just something that's not been done before, can emerge. We can create something completely new. Like, new possibilities are much more open,
because it's at the point of creation that we're focused, at the point of creation that we're observing and bringing ourselves to. So and that will always be new. It will always be completely unique. It will always be unexperienced before.
It's like it's always
never happened.
I'm taken to the creation story, and we're hovering over darkness all the time. Like, the darkness being the chaos, the mystery, the chaos, the
unknown.
The unknown, and it's in that and out of that the new creations.
That light suddenly blooms.
Oh, I'm loving this. I'm loving this.
Great. This is a brand new interpretation of like the Bible story.
Which I mean, that is like,
it's great. It's so fitting.
And it goes back to this expression of the divine, like the divine as creator, and also the word of God as ever creating, or ever create. Like, and aware that I think part of that I've become aware of is that it's okay to lend my thinking capacities, like planning, all those accomplishment driven stuff, it's okay to lend or to utilize those for those things I've become aware of that might be unfolding.
Yeah, to allow that to happen simultaneously, you mean?
Yeah, like in being aware in the experience, I can have flashes of like what could be,
right?
But that doesn't mean it's just going to happen. It might mean that I need to do hard work to get there, or I need to push on the door of it in some way, and so I can give myself permission to do that. Instead of all those capabilities being compulsively used for what I think I should be, or the old stories.
So instead of them being future focused, they can be present focused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I think what we've been saying to me sounds really wonderful. Like you get moments of inspiration. Let's call it like that. That's another way of phrasing it, isn't it? But those inspirations aren't just going to happen necessarily. They need me to do something for them to happen. And me doing something often means the harder work. And I think what traditionally I've thought is like all that capacity for the hard work has to be fixated on becoming a better X, Y, or Z. And it's like these inspirations have enough value to use those capacities for them.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Like they don't have to be used for the safe stuff, the stable stuff, the secure stuff, the competent stuff. They
can just be.
Yeah, they can just be. Yeah, they don't have to fix. They don't
or justify their existence.
Yeah, and they don't have a set purpose. Maybe.
No.
Yeah. And yeah, and that seems quite key as well. That because it is our whole being that is involved in this. It's not just the inspiration side or the intuition side or whatever. There's that side of us as well. I don't know if I've just muddied waters there or not.
I'm not sure I've completely followed. I think I have. That you've got like when we're there and we're in the moment and we're aware of ourselves and we're aware of creation and we're aware of all things together. That the part of ourselves that is future or past focused or both, or like planning or something like that, they're incorporated. There is an element that they are not apart from that, but then still not a separate part. No part of us is left out.
Yeah.
And so all of those elements of us combine to then give us maybe the next step of where we're going, like an insight into our next process or next step, I suppose, is the best.
And I guess that next step, like you was talking about, the next step is the kind of observing it and participating in it. The meaning comes to us because of who we are in that place. Like I guess the next step of what's unfolding happens because we are doing it.
Yeah, we were involved in that then, and we were sort of seeing, well, this is a natural flow from here to there, and we are experiencing this flow as it happens.
Yeah, because we have these capacities to predict and to be future oriented, predict and plan, and to be past oriented, like learn from our experience, remember how people react and things, and it's like we can use those past and future oriented capacities or parts of us in the service of what is present and what's becoming.
That it all sort of combines, it all kind of works together for it.
Rather than those being hijacked by the past or the future.
So our focus, essentially, those parts of ourselves that acknowledge the past and the future, instead of being the main observer parts, or the main focus for us, instead it becomes the here and now, with an acknowledgement and a balance of those two, and going that this moment here and now is unique and perfect and beautiful and being created now, and there have been moments before and there will be moments in the future, but we're focused on this one.
I guess how I'm imagining it is like a spotlight, and that spotlight also being where where meaning is discovered, where our meaning comes from, and it can be in the past and the future, and it's kind of, it's like the spotlight that where our meaning comes from comes in the present experience, what's becoming, and that, and the past and the future parts of us become in service of that. They're
combining to help highlight that meaning.
And make it happen as well. Like, create it as much, but it's not discovered in looking at what the past or the future. It's discovered
discovered now, but in light of the past and the future, essentially.
Yes, I think that might well be true. I think where I'm going with it is it's discovered now, but we use the capacities that are future oriented and past oriented to then bring that meaning into being.
Right. Okay.
So I'm at a play group with my youngest son this morning, and my mind is all over about planning. Have I made sure grandma's picking her up at a certain time? Am I okay with my, like, that's not where my meaning is in that planning. And when I can bring the spotlight of attention to my youngest and give our interaction attention and be present to that, then I discover, I find this really meaningful. Like, this is exactly where I want to be, and I'm really glad
you're in the right place. You're at the right time. They're in the right place. He's in the right time.
And I have a capacity to put loads of stuff into him about a relationship with your dad, with one's dad, but also, like, I'm aware that this is, I'm aware I've only got half an hour left of this, and I've got to make sure he's okay for grandma as well when she comes, and is in a good place for that as well. So it's like the meaning of my youngest and our relationship can take preeminence or can be discovered. And then I can use the other parts of me in service of that as well.
but also that's like part of the meaning of that moment is looking after your son, isn't it? It's making sure that he's got everything he needs for future moments.
Yeah.
Part of which is there's somebody else to look after him. So that's where it does combine, doesn't it? The meaning of that moment is the combination of, you know, what's gone before, you know that he will need somebody to look after him, and so that's been arranged, and you're considering that in that moment. But the focus is the time.
And I guess, like, I know he needs to learn social skills. So when another person is ripping off the toy from him, like, all that knowledge I have of what the world is like and what he's going to have to face, more than likely,
it's like a very real world example.
Like it becomes really meaningful in service of this moment.
Wow. That's a very good example to use, Tom. A really good
it's probably the one surest place I can go, or I keep discovering is, I still find that really meaningful. Like, that's I can't and but then it's kind of discovering other things can be I'm less certain on, I guess. So that's why I use that as an example so often, is because it's quite definitive for me.
Quite easy, it's easy to see the meaning and the purpose of it. Well, I hope we have lots more that are easy like that. Easy in the sense of seeing the meaning and the purpose. Probably not so
maybe it is much more easy. Maybe, you know, for me, having some training in therapy and reading some books, it's easy for me to notice the meaning I experience with my children. And maybe as I get more, as I become more connected to what's going on in me in each moment, maybe it is that easy. I'm just not very good at it.
we just haven't been taught and haven't practiced it.
But I guess it's like the meaning is already there somehow, in a sense, and it's not like you need a degree or anything to discover it.
No, and anybody can, and I think that children probably are, in some respects, better at it. I think better isn't quite the right word. More adept at just being there and in the moment, because they don't have, like, the way that they haven't been trained not to be in the moment yet.
Great. I think we need to leave it there, James.
We absolutely do, Tom. That has been great. I think we really wrestled with some tough stuff, and I think that's really helpful. That's been amazing.
I'm really drawn back to that image of just the present existing, and then the meaning found in that. Like, going back to, like, an earlier analogy that we use really powerfully. Like, that's
the one that keeps bringing to mind is the pen on the paper, and it being the contact point of the pen and the paper, and the ball, and all of the different imagery in the paper is like whatever existence, time, whatever you want to call it, and then, like, as it's being drawn out, that's history being written or whatever, or it's stuff happening. But all of the stuff that's already happened is the marks, and all the stuff that's yet to happen is the ink. And it takes so many forms.
And it's the nature of the pen about how it will actually happen, what will emerge.
Happen, and then there's the hand of God, presumably, that drives it forwards and decides where it's going to go. And we're involved in that. We're a part of that. I don't know whether we're part of the ink, or a part of the hand, or a part of the pen, or a bit of all of it, or maybe even part of the paper. I don't know. I love that.
Great. Thank you, James. I said right. Yeah, and I think it's just I mean, what I'm taking from that metaphor is just like I can be the nib.
Yeah.
Like I can be at the point of contact with everything.
That's it.
And
in that intersectional point.
In that, yeah, like that's all of us.
And that's it, and that's what we're talking about. That's the point of meaning, isn't it? That's the point of purpose. Is that point where it touches?
Yeah.
Where creation's happening perpetually.
And can I get back to that point?
Yeah.
Or giving myself permission to get back to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And always, because we're always in that point, we always exist in that point. It's whether we're looking at it or not.
Yeah. So giving myself permission to be aware of it, maybe, and experience it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Rather than it just flying by. Yeah.
I think this is probably the essence of mindfulness, or at least an element of mindfulness.
An element. Yeah. I think it might be. It could be the essence of many wisdom philosophies. Yeah. Yeah. Great. Yeah. And yeah. Anyway, I'm aware that time is going. But I like that. Maybe we should start with that analogy next time or something. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Tom.
And I hope you found this as rewarding as we did.